Alright everybody, well, it's been a couple weeks since, well, it's been 2 or 3 weeks since we've gotten this Jeep here and kind of showed it. Got a 401, all that stuff. Don't know what's wrong with it. Well, we took it apart a little bit, and once I get the snow brushed off it, we'll go over it a little more. And unfortunately, we haven't been able to get the old Gladiator to fire up. It's it'll start, but it's just not running good at all. And I don't think it's a carburetor, it's a points ignition. I think it's an ignition problem is why it's not really wanting to run right, because it just runs horrible. I mean, you can't rev it, you can't do nothing with it, so we'll have to look at that sometime. But right now I'll go over what we did to this. Like I said, I'm gonna get the snow off it and we'll get the hood open. Alright, got the snow off it pretty good, enough for what we're going to mess with. Okay, so I had to pull the intake and stuff off on this engine. So if you remember in the first video, I had a broken rocker arm holder, the little magnesium or aluminum thing that ties the two rocker arms together is broken, and had a bent push rod. So we got that, and so there was a brand new set of plugs, thermostat, and a bunch of stuff in here, and they had the intake, carburetor, stuff like that all disconnected. Well, not the intake bolts, but all the hoses and stuff like that. So I went ahead and just figured, well, I better look at this a little bit closer, and we pulled that valve cover off. Every one of those tie downs are broken, every push rod bent. So we decided to pull the intake off. All the lifters were, except for the ones that you see in here, were actually laying in the valley. So I don't know if they just over revved the crap out of this engine, because I've never seen that done before. I don't know even how to explain or say how to do that. But yeah, so you're pretty low on oil, so I put a bunch of oil in it with zinc and all that good stuff. We figured out how to get the motor to turn over with the battery, and it's pretty janky wiring. But the good news is somehow it's got thumb blowing compression on every cylinder. I mean, it'll spat your thumb right off with compression. So I don't know if it has a knocking rod. I mean, it could have a knocking rod. It could have a lot of problems because there's a lot of flaky stuff in here, or glittery stuff. But I'm maybe just assuming that's broken aluminum. I don't know. So we're not going to really spend any money on this. We're just going to hillbilly this thing together. I went to a friend's house. Geez, people peeing all over the place over here. Try not to step in that. Get snow drift out of the way. I went to a friend's house, and he had a 360 with all the things and push rods and whatnot. So we're just going to clean up the valley pan, glue it back on with the intake, throw all the rockers back in. I'll oil them up really good, and kind of just throw this thing together and see if it'll run. And if it'll run, see if it sounds okay, maybe see if it'll go in gear. But I don't have a whole heck of a lot of hope for this 401. It's probably savable, but it's not something I'm going to rebuild or do anything with probably. So anyways, I'll quit yapping here and I'll get everything set up on my makeshift workbench. And it's a brisk, I don't know, maybe 20 degrees out right now, so this video might be a couple parts. I don't know how long I'll stay out here and work. We don't get any real sunlight over here. We could just, it's out on the road, but it never comes in here, so. All right, well anyways, I'll get all set up and bring you back here when I find something exciting to do. Okay, well I got a bunch of the annoying stuff done. And believe it or not, I cleaned up all the intake surfaces already. It's just, you know, what can you do out here in the snow? You can't do a fantastic job, but they're pretty clean. Be clean enough for what we're going to do. Got all these in. I oiled them, all that good stuff. I oiled up all the lifters and made sure I got oil and zinc on the cam. And like I said, none of the bottom of the lifters looked bad. They weren't pitted or anything. But interestingly enough, I'm sure this motor has no oil pressure, because that's pretty much all of these. And I'm wondering if there's actually enough wear. Like, look at that guy. Enough wear and all this crap. That's why the push rods came out and stuff. I mean, I don't know, but I mean that one right there, that's brutal. So I'm sure there's no oil pressure. I'm sure the oil pump's probably bad, but I did over oil everything up on the top end there, just to kind of protect it some. These are all the push rods, even though they don't look bent, they are bent. And the only two that weren't bent, well actually there's 3 altogether that aren't completely bent. There's another bent one. But I mean, it just, everything in this thing is just torn up. So anyways, I'm going to grab the intake and that valley pan gasket. I'll try to get that thing glued on there so the water will quit dripping everywhere. And I've stand corrected here. The sun does make it over here. It doesn't make it over there. But you know, I don't actually come out here too much in the dead of winter and work on rigs. Well, I live up the road now, so now I will be. But good to know if it's an actual sunny day, the sun will reach just in this part of the yard, but it won't reach anything out back, and it won't reach anything by the homestead. So alright, I'll quit rambling here and we'll grab an intake and try to get that on. Alright there, people. Well, threw a little gas down it and got it timed the best I can figure. Of course the starter's junk. When aren't they on these? But it'll engage, but battery's pretty low. I've got a battery charging. And it seems like it might be trying to start, but I don't know that I would be a betting man that it's going to start and run. And I can't tell if I'm 180 off or not because it's pretty dead. I'm assuming they had a button start in here at one time. But anyways, I'm going to keep dinking with it here. And if something happens, I'll let you guys know. Alright everybody, it's the next day. Okay, we left it off that it was just being a straight up clunker. Well, today I got some more progress done on it. I haven't gotten it to run yet, but it might finally run. Where to begin here? Oh, all the rocker arms are super loose. It never built any oil pressure with the amount of time that I turned it over, so I went ahead and figured out that's probably why it's not trying to run, because it doesn't have any, it's not opening the lifter, the valves basically. So I made a homemade priming tool out of a 1/2 inch socket and a Harbor Freight screwdriver. And the socket's just to keep it kind of on the shaft so it's not breaking stuff. But anyways, the motor actually primed. But the first problem is I have never ever had an oil filter blow off an engine. This actually blew off the engine. Luckily I had an LS oil filter laying around, and yes, an LS oil filter, an early LS oil filter will screw onto this. So we got her primed, got ready to start it. Well, since now the valve's open, one of the cylinders loaded up with gas, so it was hydro locked, and that's where we're at. I just pulled all the plugs, and now I guess I'll put the plugs back in and maybe this crap will fire up. Wish us luck. Alright people, let's give this a try. I didn't mention this has a starter button. Let's see if I can do this. Holy crap! It runs. I don't know how. It actually runs, and I'm sure it's because of my 10 different spark plug wires it's missing, but it actually, for being a total pile of junk, it actually sounded okay. Holy crap. That actually scared me. I was a little freaked out with that one, so I apologize with my camera work there. Wow. Huh. I'm sure this thing's got 1,000 different vacuum leaks on it. Oh, that's why she was getting the full onion. Throttle wasn't all the way in. Let's try it one more time. That should be enough to explode, catch on fire. Now it probably won't run because I don't have the throttle. Again, I'm pretty shocked it even runs that good. And don't get me wrong, it ain't running very good. But that's pretty good for the carnage that this thing has seen. Now let's not forget this, all these bent push rods, a blown oil filter, which I'm starting to think, because it was really low on oil anyways, I'm starting to think it blew the oil filter off. They lost it, ran this without oil. I don't know how they jumped the lifters, other than those are so worn out and broken, the lifters flew out. And then they parked it. Realized when they pulled that apart that even though they had new push rods and stuff, when you went to go put one of the push rods in, there's no lifter in the bore. So I think that's why they started trying to take the intake off. They never did. They probably just figured, oh, this motor's junk. But, well, again, that's freakish to say the least. So, alright, cool. Well, next weekend, if I have time, I'm pretty busy next weekend, but I might try to air up some tires. I might actually try to go get some plug wires for it. It has an electric fuel pump that does work, and I might throw a little gas in it and see if we can get this thing just to run. And I've got all the cooling stuff for it, and maybe we can get it to run a little bit longer and see if she'll move. But until then, well, I appreciate you guys watching, and try not to make any messes the EPA is going to get mad about. Till the next video, we'll see you later.